Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Curious Owlbear, and today we're exploring a little homebrew dice game that my players really enjoy. Now, I must warn you that this game is not really tested, nor is it very balanced, but it's become one of our biggest downtime activities. If you're familiar with 5-card draw poker, then this game will probably sound a little familiar to you. Let's dive in. The requirements of the game are 5 6-sided die per player. Each player should be unable to see the other's die. To this end, we often use the tops of our dice trays or an extra DM screen set up between the players. The goal of the game is to make the best 5-die hand, or to force all of the other players in the game to fold their hand through the use of betting. I'm going to explain the basic options that you have on each of your turns during the game, so you'll be set even if you aren't familiar with 5-card draw. If you are familiar with 5-card draw, or just about any other type of poker, you won't need this explanation of the vernacular. Please feel free to skip ahead to the timestamp on the screen. In many poker-style games, you have 3 options on your turn: check, bet, or fold. To check means to defer your bet to the next person, or basically pass your turn. This option is usually best when you're unsure of what the other players have, or if you're not confident that your hand is good enough to bet with. The bet option enables you to put more money into the pot, which the other players have to match in order to progress to the next round of the game. Once someone has bet, every other player needs to match the amount using the call option by betting the same amount of coin into the pot. Another player can bet more after another player bets. However, this is called a raise. Once a player has raised the bet, every other player needs to match the new amount for the round, including the player who had used the bet option initially. And finally, the fold option is used when you do not want to match the other player's bet because your hand is just not good enough. If you're not clear on how these options work together, then stick around. I will be playing out a sample hand on screen. And now you may be asking, which hand beats which? Well, I've got you covered with this graphic. Generally speaking, this priority list is the same as 5-card draw poker, with a couple of small changes. Since there are only 6 potential results on each dice, instead of the 13 in a standard deck of playing cards, it's easier to get pairs, 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, and 5 of a kind. Therefore, we have prioritized straights slightly, with the high straight becoming one of the better hands in the game. Of course, this game is entirely missing any suits, and therefore is missing the flush and any other suit-related hands. Now, let's get into the basics of playing the game. The game begins with each player agreeing to an ante, or a starting bet. Depending on how affluent the area is, this ante is usually between 2 silver pieces and 5 gold pieces in my home games. Usually, we continue until every player has had a chance to start a round of betting, because it just seems fair. Let's jump into a full sample hand. Here, we have 3 example players. First, they agree to the ante of 2 silver pieces. Each player places their silver pieces in the pot and rolls their die in secret. They assess the strength of their hand, and betting begins. The first player has a pair of 4s, which is not the strongest hand in the game, but it is also playable. They'll make a small bet of 2 silver pieces, and now each player will need to match those 2 silver pieces with their own. Player number 2 doesn't really have many options, so they will fold and wait until the start of the next hand. Player 3 is very close to completing a 5-die straight, so they will call, placing their 2 silver pieces into the pot. At this point, both of the remaining players choose how many die they would like to reroll. Each player in the game may reroll any number of die that they wish, but they must tell all of the other players at the table how many they are re-rolling. Player 1 will re-roll 3 die in an attempt to get more 4s, while player 3 will re-roll only 1 die in the hope of getting the 5 to complete their straight. Player 1 then starts the second round of betting. While they got another pair, they were unable to find any more 4s, so they will take the check option, which defers the bet to player 3. Player 3 was unable to complete their straight, but player 1 does not know that. So, player 3 attempts to steal the hand by betting an entire gold piece. Player 1 considers whether to call or fold, but 1 gold piece is not that much for an adventurer, so they call. Player 1 wins the 3 gold in the pot, and the game moves on to the next hand. And with that explanation, I hope you're getting a feel for this little dice game. We've tried a couple of other poker-style dice games in the past, including a Texas Hold'em version, but this one is our favorite, mainly because of how fast it gets going. It also seems to result in a high number of playable hands, so players can stay in the game a lot longer than they would in normal 5-card draw. Make sure to leave me a comment below if you're planning on using this little dice game in one of your home sessions. If you have any ideas or requests for future videos, leave those down there too. I'd love to hear about them. Until next time, stay curious, adventurers.